What's up, y'all? It's Dr. Paul, Liberty Hill Comics. Welcome to episode 48 of the Comic Book Conservators. I hope everybody had a great week. We're going to cap it off with a fun show in two parts. And we're going to kick off your next week in a super positive way. So, welcome, everybody. It looks like we are short a co-host at the moment. Yep. Shelby said he was going to join us, so I'm expecting him to join us soon. Captain Larry's company changed his flight schedule kind of last minute, so he let us know this morning the moment he knew, and he's not going to be with us. But he'll be with us in spirit. Say hi to everybody, Phil. How you doing?
Hey, everybody. Phil here, coming to you live from the border of Brooklyn and Queens, as always. You can find me on Instagram at Phantom Restoration or the website link beneath my name here. And as always, excited to be here. I always know it's Sunday.
The Phantom.
We're doing this.
Yeah, so I had kind of a long week. I was under the weather all week. It was actually last week, Sunday, the day we did our show, I started just feeling kind of crummy. Nothing too severe, but I just spent the whole week with the blahs, with the mess. And I had my birthday this past week. So unfortunately, I celebrated my birthday feeling crummy.
Yeah, dang.
Wow. I normally do, especially since I've been older, I normally do some kind of athletic thing on my birthday, like, oh, I benched 300 on my 50th birthday, that kind of thing. And I mean, this is a tradition going back like 15 years that I've been doing stuff like that. And this year I skipped it. I was just like, ugh.
So that's your birthday present to yourself.
You get to enjoy your virus. Yeah, but like I said, not too severe. Just kind of felt crummy all week. So I did a little bit of leaf casting, and I did a little bit of other comic book stuff toward the end of the week when I was feeling just a little bit more energy. But I pretty much laid low all week. Did as little work as I had to keep things going. And speaking of work, he's not here. I was going to say something about it when he got here, but Shelby started a new job this week too, and he spent the week with his new employer. Yeah, so maybe we'll hear from him about that. But unless we hear from him soon, I think we may as well just say hello to everybody and get started. So if you are tuned in live and seeing this show commercial free, thank the Archivist Adrift and thank Salesboy Comics, two channels that you should be checking out. They sponsor this show by giving us some super chats last episode. So thanks, fellas. And with that, I'll say hello to Robbie Josephs. Hi, guys. Wanted to say hi. Commented for your work. You guys are all right. Well, it's nice to be all right, man. Could be worse. Rick Nestor's here as usual. My buddy Mike. Hugo Danner's here. Welcome. Ben Stewart. Hello. The Professor. Peter Alachi's here. Rick Nestor, I already mentioned. Second week without Captain Larry. I know. Well, yeah, it's a drag when work gets in the way of your hobbies, but unfortunately it happens to all of us. Silver Spidey says, oh, hello, Don Carter. Thank you so much for the super chat. Thank you. So he'll be sponsoring our next episode. Thanks, Don. Don had a great post in our Facebook group this past week, and I've invited him on actually to give us a walkthrough of some of his conservation work and CGC submissions. So hopefully we'll have him on the show soon. Rama Starchild, I have several #1 timely books that I'd like to be worked on. Submariner, Mystic, Red Raven, Young Allies. How can I reach you guys? Wow. Those are some books.
Quick list.
Yeah. Phil is available on Instagram is the easiest way to reach him. Phantom Restoration on Instagram. But the Facebook group or Instagram are good places to reach out to me and to Larry as well. Morris Devereaux says hello. The aforementioned Archivist of Drifts says hello. JCP as usual. Vulu's a regular here. Don Carter again. Thank you so much. Morris says, happy belated birthday, Dr. Paul. Looking over Phil's shoulder to see the comic he's working on. We are all doing that. Jason says, congrats, Shelb. So we'll have to pass that on to him when he joins us. And Jason says, dig that leather jacket. I'm nervous, Lou. Don't know why, since I have plenty of practice stuff. I also dig that leather jacket. I found a nice leather jacket in the thrift store when I was down in Florida. So I don't get to wear it often here in Texas, but
I wouldn't imagine so.
I was channeling my inner Phil when I purchased it. So yeah, so now that hellos are sort of complete, thanks for joining us, everybody. Why don't we jump into this book and we'll see what people think of the title of the show and what it might mean for a recent sale. So we've talked about this book before, and in fact, we talked about its place, in my opinion at least, in the Marvel Age chronology. So these are the big books. These are the ones that I consider to be grails, and we talked about, you know, different people have different definitions. I saw some folk, you know, you see it every week if you're in some different comic book groups. I saw some folks talking about the McFarlane cover Batman. What is it, like 428 or something like that? And that they had just acquired it and it was a grail. And I thought, we need a different word. I'm happy for you, and I love all comic books, and I'm really glad that you got something you've been chasing for a long time, but man, there's got to be 10,000 of those in the census. Like, how can it, like, a grail is like got to be something approaching a one of a kind type thing, very difficult to acquire. I don't know. Anyway, again, not to admonish anybody's collecting, but I think we should use the terminology a little bit more conservatively. So FF1 in November 61. Next sort of retconned superhero is Hank in January of 62 becomes Ant-Man, kind of. 5 months later, he really becomes Ant-Man, but there's his first appearance in Tales to Astonish 27. Then May of 62, Hulk 1, and August of 62, Amazing Fantasy 15. Note, these are all around the 1,000 to 2,600 in the CGC census. That's Blue Label. Tales to Astonish way down there at 1,000. That's why, for me, that's one of the best books of this lot. Same month as Amazing Fantasy 15, you have Journey into Mystery 83, August of 62. It is 2 weeks later, but same month. So that is the correct chronologic order. And then March of 63 with Tales of Suspense 39, and July of 63 with Strange Tales 110. Avengers September of 63, and look, by the time you get to Avengers, the CGC census is all the way up over 4,000. Again, Blue Labels. X-Men 1, same month as Avengers 1, September 63, nearly 5,000. And then Daredevil is the last one that I consider in this group, the last major first appearance of the Silver Age, of the Marvel Age, April 64, 5,500. Universal. So when we look at these, you got Stan and Jack, you got Stan and Jack, you got Stan and Jack, you got Stan, Jack on the cover, and Steve, right? Stan and Jack. I guess Tales of Suspense actually Stan and Don Heck, right?
Yep.
But then Steve and Jack and Stan and Steve again on Strange Tales 110, Stan and Jack on Avengers 1, Stan and Jack on X-Men 1, and then you get Stan and Bill Everett on Daredevil 1. And I made this argument before that this book, just in terms of how it's conceived and how it's executed, to me, is head and shoulders above the others. I know there's some real magic in Amazing Fantasy 15, and I know it being the first one, FF1, has, really sets a tone in a certain way. But this is why I have this book as the last one, and it's my favorite just to read. And as they say, timing is everything. Daredevil Born Again. I don't know if anybody's watching this. I bought the Miller Mazzucchelli collaboration off the newsstands in '86, and as a matter of fact, the only double cover book I ever bought off a newsstand is actually one of the issues of this series. Isn't that fun? I bought double covers since, of course, but when I bought them, I knew they were double covers.
Yeah.
Very cool. I don't know. What do you've, I assume, read Born Again, Phil?
Yeah. Yeah.
Where do you rank it? What do you think of it as a story?
I mean, I can kind of only equate it in a way to, like in the original art market, how people value it. That kind of speaks volumes for it there. So
sure,
the pages go for quite a lot.
Especially because Mazzucchelli on his own has never really been somebody who's thought of as a juggernaut in the original art market, right? Yeah. It's really the collaboration here with Miller. Personally, I rank it as, at least in the era that I'm interested in of comic books, as the best Daredevil story told.
Yeah. I think most people wouldn't argue against you there. I mean, it's if you were looking objectively and you know nothing about comics, and you're like, wow, that area there, why is that so revered? And it's like, because the story is so good, because this guy came in and was like, I'm gonna revamp the character basically, and it was groundbreaking.
In the same way that Daredevil 1, I've said before, in the first issue, you have that he's blind, you have that his dad was a boxer, you have Foggy, you have Karen, you have the love triangle, you have the conflict that he's not supposed to be a brawler, he's supposed to be, cerebral, he promised his dad, and he ends up here after his dad's death. In the same way that in Daredevil 1, you know everything you need to know about the character, at least for the next 150 issues. Born Again takes that and retcons into it so many elements and breaks it down, and then he's reborn. It really is a rather remarkable story. So again, I don't want to spoil anything for those that maybe are not watching the show in real time. The show may not share anything with this story other than the name. So if you're watching the show, it's not going to spoil the books for you. And if you have read the books, they're not going to spoil the show for you either.
If I could throw just a fun fact too,
please.
I'm forever what's the word I'm looking for? The history of the Daredevil TV show, because I did background acting work for a minute. I still do some production work. COVID kind of put it on hold, but at the time I was doing shows like, that were filming in the city, like Gotham. I was in the Penguins Iceberg Lounge, which was kind of cool.
Sweet.
But one of the scenes that we shot was for Daredevil. We were in, I can't think of the name of the building in Manhattan. It's like very gaudy, a lot of gold trim, beautiful space. And when we were shooting, I think at the time, D'Onofrio hadn't been officially publicly, like his casting as Kingpin hadn't been said. And I was looking over to my left, and over the banister, D'Onofrio was just leaning over the banister, chatting with the guy that's playing Matt Murdock, just so casually. And I was there just being like, in that episode, you can see me, like, as he's walking down, like, through this restaurant, you see me talking with some lady at a table. And I had, like, an Easter egg, if you know me, I had a few friends say, hey, Phil, I think I saw you in an episode of Daredevil. I was like,
Yeah,
yeah, well, it's just for 2 seconds, but technically I'm
that's
there forever, which
awesome.
was fun. It was fun to be on
I
set and
didn't
be
even
able
know
to
that. People
be a part of
watching.
that. Yeah,
This
very,
is
very
news to
cool.
me.
Yeah.
So, are you a card-carrying member of SAG?
I'm
That's how most
eligible
of
to
that work
join.
happens, right?
I had an 8-month plan to join in
Mm.
March of 2020, just before that, and then
Ah.
clearly, thankfully, I didn't join in January of 2020. So
Yeah,
I
I
hit
had a
halt.
coworker when we were in Hawaii. I had a coworker that was a SAG member, and he was constantly getting calls. And they shoot a lot of stuff out there, just like they shoot a lot of stuff in Manhattan, right?
Yeah.
And he's been in a whole bunch of stuff, Hawaii Five-O and
Oh, that's
movies,
awesome.
and yeah, he was actually had like a recurring, mostly background, but I think occasionally one-liner kind of character in Hawaii
Oh, that's
Five-O.
cool. That's
Yeah,
very cool.
and I mean, not his day job at all, right? As a hobby.
Same. I mean, yeah, for me,
Yeah.
it was just something that I was doing before I really was doing the comic work officially. And but it is something that I kind of piqued my interest and was fun to be a part of. And being a comic person, being on the set and seeing these characters was kind of surreal a little bit.
Yeah.
Fun.
So much fun. So let's see. Maybe you know the answer to this because I don't have it memorized. Wally Wood, does he come in around like issue 5 or 6?
I think it's issue 7, right?
He does like maybe 3 issues, I want to say. I've read them all, but it's been a little while. They're very well done. He was in the twilight of his career at the time, but they're still really fun because we don't get a lot of superhero books from Wally Wood outside of what is it, Thunder Agents?
Yeah.
Yeah. It is a very well composed cover.
Yeah.
I guess I haven't thought about how I would rank the covers. Maybe we'll do that next time we do one of these books. That's fun.
I feel like over the course of time, if you collect long enough, you will have heard someone trash talk every single cover. People, the TOS 39 is terrible. Who, what is it, an owl? It's just, there's some people that don't. That's one of my favorites. But everyone has their own, I've heard people talk ill of X-Men 1 because they say the Magneto shield bubble looks, everyone has their own. I think they're all remarkable in their own way, and it's easy to do that because we see them so much.
Yeah.
And, everyone's got an opinion too, but I think they're all fun.
Yeah. Well, I may have overshared mine, but I mean,
these were sound like hotcakes. Yeah,
15's great. FF1's great. I think Hulk 1 is actually great too. That's been homaged a bunch of times. I actually think Journey into Mystery 83 is very good. I like the Iron Man. I mean, obviously, Strange Tales 110
that's
is
the
pretty weak, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
As much as we like Paste Pot Pete.
I don't know if there are any other important, first appearances there, but can't tell from the cover, right? Yeah, I don't know about Avengers 1. X-Men, I'd rather like X-Men 1. I don't know about Daredevil. Yeah. Daredevil 1 is a little bit along the lines of the Tales of Suspense 39, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of. Yeah. Yeah.
Some people don't. Some people don't like Atlas books because they have those little box art,
right? Like a lot of the sort of panels almost on the cover.
Yeah. It's just everyone has their own quirks and preferences.
Interesting. So anyway, timing is everything, which is why we are. So this is kind of hard to wrap my brain around. Almost 40 years between the publication of Born Again and this show.
That's hard to believe.
Wow, where's the time gone?
Really, Killing Joke, 2 more years, and it'll be 40 years old, or 3 more years, right? That's I don't like that.
So as we said, Daredevil 1, April 64, Universal still 5,508. Oh, I have a couple copies here. One is mine, one is a friend's. I probably could have brought them out and gone like that, but I didn't occur to me. So 2 of those Universal copies are here in my domicile at the moment. 597 signature, 505 restored, 83 qualified, 33 conserved, median grade 4.5. A little bit higher than some of those other Silver Age, Marvel Age, keys. As we talked about, first appearance and origin of Daredevil, Foggy, and Karen. No big bad, really. The villain is, as far as I know, never really heard from again, because he's just avenging his father's death there. Still, great book, as I've said. Because there's over 5,000 of them in the census, pretty easy to come up with fair market value for any given grade, although this one, as you can see, is climbing again with interest in Born Again. Median grade being 4.5, a 5.5 is top 34 percentile for this book in terms of books in the census. 1 year average is 3,867 with a low of 3,310, a high this year of almost 4,800. And the record sale back during the pandemic is 7,500 for this grade.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah. Again, if you're a fan of Marvel, it should be in your collection. There are enough out there. There's entry points all along the graph here. This book's, again, clearly on the rise. Last sale, if you just look at the last 30 days, your average is 4,000, just under 4,600, whereas the last 90 days is 4,250, and the last 1 year average is 3,900. So it's a book on the rise. Again, we know why. But in that context, this book here came to, I was going to say auction, but it technically didn't come to auction. It was listed on eBay with a buy it now. And we'll talk a little bit more about that when we do guesses. But this is a fixed price sale, if that helps you wrap your brain around it. Here are the grader's notes. We've seen this before. It's a conserved book, but the label reads, restoration includes, cover cleaned. Now, I have discussed this with Matt Nelson. He said it's an error. He said it shouldn't say that. If you get a book that is conserved and the label reads restoration includes, you should send it back under mechanical error and they will correct it. I believe, if I understood him correctly, the graders take notes and they have drop-down menus to, so that they can quickly enter their notes. And then they have a little bit of AI script that summarizes it for the label. And it triggers restoration when they've done cover cleaned, despite the fact that they've made the determination that it's conserved. So that's the explanation for it. They're working on it. But those of us that have done a fair amount of conservation have probably all received a book or two like this, and that's what you should do. So cover cleaned, that's all we have. And then grader's notes indicate moderate creasing to cover, light staining to cover. This was graded in February of 2024, so about a year ago. Somebody probably graded it in anticipation of Born Again. We've known for a while this is coming up. And, I didn't check to see if this was a consignment or if it was a sale to Lone Star, but it was offered by Lone Star Comics on eBay. So because all we have is cover cleaned, I thought I'd show some larger images here.
Nice.
We can talk a little bit about the tells for cover cleaned. One of the things you want to look for is shrink of the cover paper, especially. So cover stock is very different than the interior pages. If you aqueous bath it and you're not careful about how you dry it, or sometimes even if you are, but it's had previous water damage, the paper can shrink, and it shrinks in the Silver Age in this way, and actually shrinks in the Golden Age in this way, because the paper has a fiber to it. It has a grain, actually, is the best way to describe it. And so it's going to shrink this way in the Silver Age. So what you look for is extra paper showing along the right edge in terms of interior pages being longer / wider here in this instance than the cover. I don't see that here, but we'll have a look at the back in a moment. Another thing that you may look for cover cleaned as a tell is just a feeling. The paper doesn't feel correct. The clay that is used, the kaolin that is used as an additive for the cover stock during this period, can get a little dislodged or weakened. The paper can feel sort of threadbare and floppy instead of stiff like it ought to be. You do see a little bit of, possibly on this bottom right edge, you see the cover being not as wide as the interior pages. So that could be a tell. I don't know if you see anything you want to bring up here, Phil, but we'll look back in a minute too.
It shrank, but just not uniformly. So you see it
Could
more
be
on the bottom right edge, not necessarily on the top, because that's, there's no as the paper is shrinking, it doesn't adhere to mathematical rules. It's kind of dependent on so many different factors. So
it depends on a lot of things, right? Check out the back. So here we see where this is maybe the cover's kind of been wrapped to not show the shrinkage of the cover, right? Because it almost looks like we have a rolled book here, but on the front it didn't look that way.
Yeah, but you would think if they were to clean the cover and then reattach it, it has to go in the staple holes. So if you're varying where you're putting reinserting the staple back in, that would also be a tell too. So
but yeah, and you have a little bit of play, and that may have been the tell here, right?
Yeah.
Because otherwise, I don't know. This does not look overly bleached or overly white to me, right?
No,
I don't see any other tells. So the only one that, obviously I can't feel the book. I don't know about the stiffness of the paper. The only visual one that I have to go on here is this. And it does look to me like this is maybe not enough by itself, but this would be supporting evidence to me. If I had other tells, this would be supporting evidence of a cleaned cover.
I could add too, just for the sake of argument, let's say hypothetically, you're looking at the top left edge of the back cover there, and you see some very light staining. You can make the case, again, I don't know this book intimately, but let's say hypothetically you open it up and you see corresponding staining on the top edge of those interior pages there. And then the grader that got this book is looking at that same area on the cover. And then if you once you have a suspicion that a cover's been cleaned or a book's been cleaned, I mean, if you have the before and after photos and then you see where the stains were and how they haven't, you can your eye can kind of make out just certain areas where, now you can kind of see. So it's possible here, I'm seeing that there. Maybe the stain, maybe the sizing of that whole area there, since it was washed, it's just one more tell to add to the story. So now the person isn't like, it felt a little odd, then I'm seeing this stain. The stain isn't corresponding on the cover. Therefore, this is kind of all the evidence we need to say that this had to have been washed, because where's the rest of the stain? Exactly. Yep. Yeah. One of the a remarkable book that stood out to me when CGC was kind of starting to really crack down on the covered clean notations with people using the bled and hop techniques is someone was going to send me a Hulk 1, and then they went with someone else, and then the book came back with a conserved label for the cover clean. As soon as I saw it, I didn't see the pictures originally, but once I saw the pictures after, I was like, I know why this got pegged. And it was because you could see the book had a slight spine roll, and you could see a stain, kind of a moderate stain on that was on the back cover that went into the interior pages. Once you saw the after, the stain was gone from the cover, but still on the interior pages. And it was like, did CGC think that the stain just somehow wasn't going to be in the cover, but it was going to be in the rest of the book? And then the area of the cover where the stain was, now that you're looking at it and you're like, this looks,
now you can see a faint
about it.
Yeah, now you can see a faint stain there.
That's the tell. And then it was like,
and that's the tell. Yeah, great. So thanks for pointing this out, Travis, and welcome to the show.
Yep.
That's probably another good potential tell there. But you see the overlap here on the bottom, it's kind of split. You have interior pages showing top and bottom.
Yeah.
Rather, I should say front and back, not top and bottom, front and back. And then at the top, the conservator, I'll say here, shifted the cover, I think, to make all of the overlap on the back. Or maybe that's just kind of how it came back together. You know, sometimes the paper just comes back together a certain way.
Yeah,
but those were the things that potentially were the tells on this book. So why don't we open it up to guesses for what we think this book sold this past week as a fixed price on eBay. And while y'all do that and throw your guesses in, I'll scroll back through some of the comments and see. Ben says Vincent D'Onofrio makes the show. I mean, he's obviously a very he does carry the scenes he's in for sure. Jason says, I've heard people saying FF1 was boring, Amazing Fantasy was ugly because of the brown. He says he hates the X-Men one. Ben loves them all. Ben also says I could not have a higher opinion of Charlie Cox's portrayal of Daredevil. Very strong, right? Jason says, I loved Daredevil showed up in the Bill Bixby, Lou Ferrigno Hulk back when we were kids. That's hilarious. Hugo Danner says, I know I'm in the minority. I'm not sure you are. For some reason, I always loved Daredevil's original red and yellow costume better. It's maybe because he first saw it in ASM 16. I love the red and yellow myself, personally.
Same.
In fact, who knows why they went to the red? Could be just to make the colorist's life easier. They did stuff like that, right? I mean, Stan Lee gave all of the characters alliterative names, so it was easier for him to remember. So, who knows? Salesboy says, sorry I'm late. You're never late. The party doesn't start till you get here. Collecting Chaos says, hi. Pluck my last nerves. Checking in. And the professor's first on the guesses with 3,400. Rick Nestor at 3,300. Silver Spidey at 3,200. Travis has another comment. I also suspect some who don't completely disassemble will leave stains up against the spine inside the cover. Yeah, absolutely. We know that's a tell. Matt told me that's specifically something CGC is looking for. Commandant VHS, welcome to the show, says 3K. Sales Boys at 4K. Jason's 1,500. Did you read the title of the show, of the episode, Jason? Travis says 2,150. Hugo Danner's at 3,850. Ben is high man at 5K, I believe, if I sort of collated all those correctly. Daredevil is like Submariner, a little boring. In the first 150 issues of Daredevil, there's like 3 or 4 that are really good stories, I think. Issue 1 is one of them, thankfully. That's my opinion. Is Daredevil an analog of Batman? Moon Knight is. I don't know. I think he was another clay foot guy with, he's blind, but he's a superhero kind of thing. I think and he's not really wealthy. I mean, he's an attorney, so he has okay funds, but he's not like, I wouldn't think so. I wouldn't say that. What do you think, Phil?
Price-wise?
Sorry. Do you think he's a Batman knockoff? We could go through those again. I mean, Thor was a straight up Superman knockoff.
Yeah. No, I feel like over the course of 25 years of thinking about superheroes, I've had points where most superheroes, I hear an argument where I'm like, you know what? Okay, fair enough. And I think for Daredevil, I mean, come on, he's blind. Like, it's just like right there. Like no other superhero has that as a pitfall they're starting off with. So it's just like Batman isn't blind.
And then he's an attorney.
Just yeah.
And so then you also have that sort of double entendre, the blind justice thing. Yeah.
Yep.
Again, I think he's
Genius. I think it's genius.
I think he is. I wish we had stronger writing in the first 100 issues, because the Silver Age of Daredevil, frankly, is not strong in my opinion. But
Yeah.
Batman's a Shadow ripoff, of course. Daredevil's a knockoff of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. If you had a time machine,
yeah.
Stan jumped into the future to see Eastman and Lard's work, and then went back to 63 to conceive it with Bill Everett.
All right, this conversation's devolving into the
So what do you got?
stereotypical.
What do you got?
I was just going to say,
Travis does say Daredevil by Brubaker was fantastic. Same with Wade. Mark Wade on anything is fantastic. Go ahead, Phil. What's your guess?
Normally, don't we usually see the unrestored Universal price first to compare, or am I?
Sorry. So I didn't show you one book. I said there's so many. That I just showed you a graph.
That's right.
So it's a rising book. 1 year average is 3,900. 90-day average is 4,250. 30-day average is almost 4,600. Fair market value of 4,300.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with $2,500.
Boom.
Nope.
That's a pretty strong sale.
Yeah, I'd say so.
I will say this, and I said I would mention this before, or earlier. It doesn't look like a super savvy buyer, and I don't want to.
Maybe they didn't know
to jive on anybody. Everybody gets started somewhere, but they bought it through eBay. If you go to my comic shop, you're going to get this book approximately 10% cheaper, and I don't know what they would have had it before, but the rule of thumb is about 10% less direct from them. So my guess would be you're going to see this for 3,200 or something on their direct site. So maybe not a very sophisticated collector. Nevertheless, no doubt, somebody very happy to have this book presenting so nicely. And I have a question for you, Phil. So given what we know about, which admittedly is not everything, about why this might have received a conserved grade, any chance you think this can be put back into a blue label?
That's a question I get asked all the time. I mean, the graders are grading what's in front of them, and I've seen, while the consistency has been very high, there's enough instances, I think, that if you really want to take the gamble and you want to try to regrade this a couple of times and see if it gets through one of the times, I mean, I would say that you could make the argument to do that, but really you need to have a professional inspect this in hand to really know. That's the only way
you're definitely rolling the dice, right? But exactly, I don't think it's impossible. Like, for example, if the main tell was the one pointed out by Travis, then you could presumably just clean the interior and pull it off. If it's cover shrinkage, there's a chance you can re-wet it and dry it under constrained conditions and have it dry back at original dimensions. I think there's a chance. I think it's a non-zero. I think, but you are definitely rolling the dice, right?
Yeah.
Okay. We'll just do one more because this one's really clever. If Daredevil only had a boomerang, he'd be a ripoff of Daredevil. He probably is a ripoff of Daredevil, even though he doesn't have a boomerang, but he kind of has similar weapons. All right. So 80%. That's a great sale for conserved books.
Yeah. I mean,
that's definitely
sorry, I was going to say, as we've talked, and as I know you're a big advocate for, I tread that weird line of doing work for clients, so it doesn't get requested a lot because of the conversation of how it affects equity. But, I was thinking before we saw this, that this book was only cover clean for the notation, and that it's inarguable that this book technically has a longer shelf life now than a comparable copy that the cover was not cleaned. This one will last. If nothing's done to either book, this one will last longer. How that wouldn't make it more valuable, since it's being preserved long term, I think we will absolutely see a change. And if this is a legit sale, this can be part of that slowly changing paradigm shift that we're a part of right now.
Yeah. You know, it's funny because perception is everything too, right? So I tend to think of conserved books in terms of their discount to Universal. But I was talking to Matt Nelson about it, and he said he chose to view it the other way. Before they created the conserved label, these were being pigeonholed with restored books. And so rather than view it as a discount to Universal, he likes to view it as a bump up from restored, which is true, right?
Now,
it's all about it's all about your perspective. It's all about your frame of reference. So who was the winner? Was it the professor?
Yeah, someone guessed 35.
If you're the winner, let us know. Because I don't want to bog the show down too much to
the professor at 3-4.
Nice.
The closest without going over.
There you go.
And then
that's why he's got the big brain. That's why that's why they're paying him at the university. All right. So thanks everybody. That was fun. Rick says he bid 3,300, but I think the professor you said was at 34. So very close, Rick. You prepped something for us, Phil. A book.
I did.
That you're going to walk us through that maybe
just a fun book you don't see all the time.
Yeah, you think? Maybe Roma Starchild, who checked in early and said they have a number of early timely books, will be interested in the work you did here.
Perhaps.
Take it away.
Alrighty, all right. So what do we got in front of us here? So this was an unusual case. Most books come to me if they're already graded in CGC holders. So this was kind of a little change of pace with this CBCS holder, which I got to admit, the holders were very nice. I think that
Bill,
there's a...
I apologize for interrupting you, but if I don't say this right now, I will forget it. It just occurred to me. I want to set the record straight. Those of you that watched last episode, Kenny Sanderson reached out to me after that episode and said he enjoyed the episode and thanks for the kind words and that we got all the details correct. But he did want to set the record straight on something. He said he offered to do the work for free on those books because the owner of those books had been ripped off. But he said the owner would hear none of it and did pay him. So he just wanted the record straight that he had offered to do the work for free, but he did get paid by the owner of those books for that work. Again, sorry to derail your thinking there, but if I didn't say it now, I would have forgotten. So
fair enough.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, alrighty. Yeah, no, Kenny on a number of occasions has done some really solids for some people.
Oh yeah. Pillar of our community.
Absolutely. All right. So if you know CBCS books, generally speaking, it seems that if you're doing just a straight crossover, oftentimes a CBCS 3.5 would be a CGC 3.0. Like that's kind of almost a rule of thumb at this point. A lot of people that deal with graded books, very common theme that we see happen. So this one came in with notes, 2 staples added, one, and then tape on the cover and inside cover. So that's on the label here. And then jumping right in, just some photos.
Nice looking book, though.
Yeah. Yep.
I mean, for the technical grade, it presents really nicely, doesn't it?
It sure does.
Wow.
I wish I'd taken nice, proper scans, but I did just have, and forgive me, I know they're not raking light photos. What's the correct terminology?
Incident or raking depends. They both are real things. Yeah. Raking is when you have a really, really shallow angle and it actually creates any tiny little thing creates a shadow. So that's technically raking. The light is coming almost, if the book surface is here, the light is almost at the same angle. Incident is like this, where you get a glare off of it and you can see different imperfections with incident light.
So this would be incident light. So at least here, yeah, you can just see, you can make out the areas of the tape much more prominent on the back cover, and you can see how there's actually two different types of tape. There's the original tape that was put there that you can see is almost kind of starting to stain the paper, and then there was more modern tape that was put over that tape.
Of course, we often see that with these books.
Yep. And then there's another close-up, I guess, there.
Wow, looks like you got your work cut out for you.
They're real close there. So what do you do when you got a book like this? Well, I didn't take pictures of it, but you got to pop those extra staples that someone stapled into this book out. And then the cover was really just reattached with those staples. Oh, hold on a second. Oh, I thought this was going to go to the next slide.
Sales Boy Comics, thank you for the super chat. We appreciate you.
Oh, thank you.
Go check out his channel. We already mentioned you as one of the sponsors, Sales Boy, but it was before you showed up.
So here's what just the cover looks like. Open, upside down, in a bath to help loosen the tape. So you can see the inside ad, and if you really look hard, you can see as if it was almost on a light box, you can make out the front cover image through the paper. You can see that Marvel mystery on the bottom right there. And then here's kind of a close-up. You can see, the tape on the outside cover was more apparent, but here's a piece that was sealing a tear on the inside cover. So nothing crazy, but more tape.
Yeah.
Now here's the difference after the removal. And this is an interesting thing, right? So the first original piece of tape that was there was very similar to the tape that I removed. If you've watched the segment on the Superman one, where that was old tape and it had kind of congealed to the paper already, and there was no adhesive left underneath the carrier. Very, very little adhesive left underneath the carrier. In my experience, I can't understand, or I don't totally understand the timeline in which, or how, maybe it's the conditions or it's the type of tape, but I've removed tape like that where there's very little color loss like this. And then there's other instances where it basically, once you're removing the carrier, it's lifting up the color that's congealed to the adhesive that's now stuck to the carrier. So there's not really a rhyme or reason that I've seen. I'm sure part of that is just due to the quality of the tape that is older, pre-1960s tape, right?
61 is the first year. Prior to 61, it's all literally rubber. Post 61, they introduced some new adhesives, pressure sensitive adhesives. Of course, I don't imagine they took the entire market by storm all in 1 year. I'm sure that introduction took years, and there were still sort of legacy, rubber tape being sold for some time after that. By the time I was a kid, I think it was pretty much, rubber as an adhesive was gone. So probably took about a decade, I imagine.
Yeah.
But the rubber adhesive is the one that actually continues to oxidize and often, penetrates the paper and then oxidizes and crystallizes in there. And you get that, literally can see the crystals, and also, yellows and damages the paper because it gets into the cellulose matrix and then crystallizes. So it disrupts that matrix. So much more damaging the early tape. But often, as you say, the carrier will often just peel right off because the adhesive properties are gone by then because it's been completely oxidized.
Yeah. So part of this, the removal, for some of it wasn't super tedious as it would normally be to have to scrape that extra remaining adhesive. But there was the extra tape on there. So it was multi-layer tape. And then in this photo, you can see just above to the right, you can see where that added staple had been there in the imprint of that staple, and how
Got
it's
it. Yeah.
clearly not the original because this tape was over where the original
The
staple had
original,
popped
sure.
through. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And here's the
Oh.
there's the grimy afterwards, and you can see too. I don't have. There's a little bit of the adhesive that you can see there, and then there would be a little bit.
That's
too
from the newer. That's the acrylamide adhesive,
and
presumably, right?
not pictured here is all of the cotton swabs that I use. Those are almost never. I'm throwing those into the trash as I'm using those.
So gross.
For the optics of the photo, I'm not taking it, but this is just, you can see here.
Just the carrier and some of the adhesive.
Yeah. Yep. And then, so here's just straight to a side-by-side before and after, so you can kind of get a good idea of what it looked like before and after the tape was removed. There's like a slight spine roll on the interior that I pressed out too, just to make everything sit a little more flush. But all in all, really pretty good success. The biggest point that you can notice is there's a little dot of black that was taken up, but you can literally see that right in that center piece of tape there. And that was one of those things where that, and then that strip of black in just to the left of that was on the interior cover. Well, those were already compromised areas.
Right. So that's been my experience. It's like the tape went down a long time ago. When the tape was still adhesive, something caught the edge of it and it tore that little layer of paper off with that ink. But the tape still stayed there. Then decades later, you come along and remove the tape. You're not actually pulling that little piece of
it's already
ink attached to a thin layer of paper off. That's already been pulled off and has been sitting on it's committed to the carrier at that point.
Exactly.
So you showed us a bath. Was that a solvent bath? I guess.
Yeah. It was just my standard
solvents.
Standard solvent bath to
non-aqueous.
Yeah. So I always like the scans more because you get better consistent lighting and colors, because obviously I didn't do anything to the colors here to make everything more bright. This is just to show the areas before and after the tape was removed.
Right, but importantly, you didn't do anything to make the colors duller. That's for sure.
Sure. Yeah.
I mean, they're very vibrant here.
Yep.
What a beautiful
part of that will be as a result of the dry cleaning. I'm very rarely showing before and after just dry cleaning. When I'm doing tape removal, that's just usually for books that are just dry cleaned and pressed.
Sure. Oh yeah.
Here you can see the back, so you can see where that
spine roll removal.
Yep, and the tape was just it did penetrate, as Paul was talking about, the cellulose matrix, and stained the paper a little bit, but all in all, much better than it was.
Oh, big improvement, yeah. And again, not for nothing, but that tape is only continuing to oxidize and destroy the paper. So you've arrested that destruction that was occurring and given it new life. So great work. Beautiful.
And then I think this might be the last one before. Yeah, okay. So this is the last one before the reveal. So this one just kind of shows, one of the angles that you don't normally see of the spine. So there's the spine overall was pretty strong. There was just some splitting at both of the staple areas where it originally popped off.
Sure.
That was basically it. That's why the tape was put there to begin with. Oftentimes people are looking for restoration and why something was put on, like color touch or whatever. It's always serving a purpose. It's almost never just haphazard. Sometimes, the kid get really, oh my God, I want to save this forever. I'll put the tape on so I can.
Right. Yeah.
Usually the tape's sealing a tear. The color touch is on a crease. There's a rhyme or a reason to why these things were done.
My brother had his all 4 issues of Wolverine limited series laminated, just so he'd be able to read them, make it durable, and he could
protect it forever. Yep. So, oh man.
Speaking of Miller.
Okay, so before I click next.
Before you click next, is the cover loose here?
Okay, yeah. So
it was only held on by the superfluous staples, right?
Yep. So just to to clarify, this book was originally in a CBCS 3.5. Extra staples added after manufacturing, and there was tape on the cover and interior cover. So the tape wasn't actually holding the cover on; it just was added. But the original staples were in the interior, tight at the centerfold. The cover was just attached. So the cover is detached, to answer your question.
So cover detached, original staples present, holding together the rest of the contents, complete book.
Yep.
Okay.
And just to clarify here, this is what you're looking at. So the photo on the right, so it's got some issues. It's got some splitting at the staples. It's got some staining from the tape that was there that's no longer there, and a few other minor tears in the cover. But beyond that, the spine isn't totally split. It's got some nice overall eye appeal. So without any further ado, Bum, bum, bum.
There you go.
So yeah,
held the line,
universal,
and removed the tape. Presents beautifully.
Yep.
Bump in equity, presumably.
Yep.
The hit in equity for a CBCS holder is real, right? And I know we have proponents of CBCS. I'm not here to bag on the company at all. I think competition is good.
Sure.
And, you do see CBCS books sell for the same and sometimes higher than CGC. But if you average all the data, there's definitely a discount to a CBCS book. And my limited experience is, especially in the golden age, you are going to take a hit when you do a crossover. Yep. And I guess that's why there's the market is wise in terms of the difference in the equity.
Yeah.
A beautiful project, Phil. Thanks for sharing that with us. Jason, did you say you just got your first timely? Did I see that he just got his first Marvel mystery.
Oh, nice.
They are so expensive. One of the reasons I don't collect timelies is that they just the demand. Yeah. I mean, I guess it's the demand. You look at comparably rare books in comparable grades, and it's 2 to 3x what other publishers from the period are at. And if you read them, they're just as corny as the others, if not more so. I find the timelies more difficult to read than the early DC, the Golden Age DC stuff myself. So I don't chase them.
The covers, though.
The covers,
Schomburg. You got Schomburg. That's, of course. Here we go.
Of course. No, the covers are, No, if you're going to buy them, you got to buy them for the covers, because I find it very difficult to read them.
Oh, well, yeah.
It's rough.
No, it's true.
Great project, though. Thanks for sharing it.
Yeah. It's funny. I was just thinking, though, at the reveal, I feel like I did myself a disservice early, because I was saying how CBCS books usually, if you just cross-grade them, drop a point. So if you're objectively looking at what I said, you could say, well, Phil, you said that. That means if you had just submitted it as is, maybe you would have come back a 3 with the tape.
Yeah.
And that's possible. I wouldn't totally say that that's impossible, but I would also argue that you then have a book that still has tape on it. CGC also just as likely could have given it a 2.5, because they looked at the accumulation of defects and the tape, and they were like, this is a 2.5. But more importantly, tape is evil. Tape is bad. There's some people that view tape no different than a purple label and it's restored. In fact, they don't understand how it isn't restored, or they know that the tape's causing damage, or it's unsightly, or a number of reasons why it's not acceptable. It's an unacceptable defect on their book.
Absolutely.
So for this person, if
I
they want to.
personally only buy books with tape if they are conservation candidates, if my plan is to conserve them and remove the tape. I don't want anything in my long-term collection with tape on it. And not for nothing, but a 3.0 is not a 3.0 in this caliber of book. Eye appeal is very important.
Yeah.
And having this present like a solid 5, right, in a 3.0 case is definitely helping the fair market value of it. And having the tape gone is helping the fair market value of it.
Yeah.
So I know we do a lot of like, the fair market value of a 3.0 is this. But the reality is, in this caliber of book and these caliber of collectors, they're often buying the book, not the grade. Eye appeal matters a lot. And you will consistently see, again, you'll see outliers. You can find, an exception to every rule when you go into auctions. But you will see generally that if you line up all the 3.0s that have sold and you just ranked them in terms of eye appeal, the one with the best eye appeal is going to capture more equity than the one with the least eye appeal, and same with page quality. Right?
I was just about to say exactly. People will always, this went for this. Immediately I look, well, it's creamed off white and it's a Silver Age book, and that has an effect on the valuations that people will set.
Yeah. Well, many people are saying great work, Phil. Bunch of kudos here. Bronzeville's checking in. Check out his channel if you're not watching it regularly. Picked up a book yesterday. Dynamic Comics 18, CGC 3.5 with brittle pages. Looks like a 7 or better. I was thinking it would make sense to have it conserved. Wouldn't that be fun? That's a great book.
Nice.
All right. Well, thanks again for presenting that project, Phil. Great results. And I don't know if we have any other sort of folks checking in late other than Bronzeville. I think we sort of said hi to everybody.
Oh, wow. Can I just, I misspoke. I said something that was not true before. This is not a Schomburg cover. This is Sid Shore's cover. I don't know why my brain was thinking it. Just, he did so many of these, and at first glance you see it, but I
actually thought you were speaking more generally about timelies, because we were just discussing timely, and you did so many of those, right?
Yeah.
I didn't know you were talking about this one specifically.
No, I messed up.
Hey,
jaded Phil, seeing all these books. He knows what he's talking about.
I was lucky enough to get a timely with a Schomburg cover recently. It's a low grade. I'm sorry, not a timely, a Nieder book with a Schomburg cover recently. Nice. Somehow it missed Jason's radar for bidding on it, because I'm sure he would have outbid me. But yeah, it's a project book for me, so hopefully you see it on the channel soon. And if you checked in and you saw this past week my video on the King Comics NN, I will early this week get a look at the interior of that. It is currently at CGC. I'm getting some feedback from them about the contents of it, and I'm super excited to share it with everybody. It's it turns out it's kind of a special book. So hopefully hopefully everyone else will enjoy that as much as I've enjoyed doing the research on it, and will join me this week for the unveiling of the next part of the saga. I will say it's still a bit of a mystery, even in CGC's hands, and even given that they have people there with mad knowledge. So I don't know 100% if the full history of this book will ever be known. So it's pretty cool. Anyway, that's our show. And I actually like having them be about an hour, or just a little bit over an hour. It's I think we keep a little better rhythm, and I know some folks are saying, hey, they they could watch us. I don't know if all day is correct, but they could watch us more.
Mm-hmm.
If you want more content,
other ones of these.
Right, go back and watch them.
There's a lot of other ones.
If you want more comic conservation content, of course, check us out on Facebook in our comic book conservation group. Very active group of folks who are like-minded and collaborating and sharing their work. We get basically every month a new person starts leaf casting. Since we started that group, I think at least 10 people have started leaf casting comic books, which is phenomenal. And of course, check out our book right here, Comic Book Conservation. It's been on Amazon for about 4 weeks now. Not sure what happened with my co-author, Shelby, but maybe he just crashed after a long week at his new job. I don't know. Yeah, so if you do happen to reach out to him on socials or anything, tell him congratulations on the new job. And everybody should have an amazing week, and we'll see you in one more week. Rick says, I still think I might be a Canadian copy, Dr. Paul. I still think it might. Oh, it says Rick is talking about my King comics might be a Canadian copy. Could be. Yeah. Wouldn't it have been 15 cents though? Well, maybe not. I mean, like by 1940, the 10-cent comics in the US were selling for 15 cents in Canada. But if it's a 1935-36 book, maybe they were 10 cents on both sides of the border. Not sure about that. At any rate, again, very much appreciate all of you. Thank you for our double hosts, Archivist Adrift and Salesboy Comics, for both last week and this week, upcoming next week. And we will see you all very soon. Until next time, take care of one another.
Thanks for tuning in.